for 2 seconds. Go.
And shall we start the webinar?
Yes.
I do that.
Hello, everyone. Happy Roma Day to everyone. My name is Shani Rifati, and today the topic is going to be the Kosovo, especially the focus of the story is about the Roma and the ethnic cleansing that happened in 98 and 99 massively in Kosovo region. The situation of Kosovo at that time, many Western people and the media really did not pay so much attention. Neither after the big ethnic cleansing at that time when it happened, no stories were at all on the major media outlets around Western Europe or America. So given that I am myself from Kosovo, originally I come from Pristina, and for me it was very important to tell this story to the Western population, given that the US and America call this as a humanitarian bombing. But when we step one step back, how human could the bombing be? That's one of the paradox that was used in the American media as well in Western European media. And all what can I tell you about this conflict is at the end of the day, 130,000 or more Roma were ethnically cleansed from the region, driven out, and up to more than 40,000 homes were burned by the Kosovo Liberation Army, or UÇK. And so this story, it's really kind of was completely not under the radar of the Western population. And so I think at this point, I would like maybe to show some images about the Kosovo destruction and some of the cities, towns, or villages to show the first-hand devastation that happened under the very eyes of the so-called peacekeepers from the United States and NATO's countries, and as well up to 400 international non-governmental organizations. And this story never literally made the story on the newspaper in the Western Hemisphere. So I would ask now Veronica if she can play some of the images of the my trips to Kosovo. Now we see this is one of the village in just outskirts of Obilic, and the village is called Crkvena Vodica. And this is one of the family that were ethnically cleansed from this village. So now we are inside this family's house. As you can see here, the doors are taken away by the ethnic Albanians. So the man brought one of the roof tile and the branch from their garden. And now we are back in La Pleselo, which is the Serbian enclave, where this family was living at that time. And by the way, this family were 7 times internally displaced throughout Kosovo and Serbia. And now this is all what he brought to his wife back home. One branch, and roof tile. So now you can see the sign UÇK, which means Kosovo Liberation Army.
Oh God.
So now we are in one of the camps, just north of Zvečani. The place is called Leposavić, and most of these Roma and the children are from the Fabrička ulica, from the Fabrička street in Mitrovica. Now this woman here is my cousin. She was from the Moravska ulica, as we call it, upper neighborhood in Pristina. And she was amongst the last one who stayed at the house to keep the house safe. But unfortunately, she experienced some really terrible, she had one terrible experience, and she was just keep telling me constantly that there were 5 men in uniform and I'm going to sue them. And she was not able even to talk coherently. And she was keep talking about these 5 men in uniform, which probably there was a rape by the Kosovo Liberation Army. This is back in 2003 when I did this trip with Rolf Ortel, the director from Amsterdam, and very good friend of mine. This is in the village of Plemetina. Here are the KFOR forces, as you can see, which did not do literally nothing to protect Roma in Kosovo. And so all of these atrocities happen in front of the United Nations, in front of the peacekeepers from the United States, UK, and the NATO's countries. Until today, nobody is brought to the justice for the war crimes from the Kosovo Liberation Army commanders. And so we were following the refugees and the camps for many years. This place is called Carton City, which is under the bridges of in Belgrade. The bridge is called the Sava Bridge, named after the river Sava there that is going through Belgrade. And now we are inside the camp. However, here, as we can see, there is no social assistance or anything. These are some of the children that are Ashkalie from Kosovo. And now slowly we are interviewing the people inside the camp and asking about the conditions. As you can see, I mean, this is really a big tragedy and travesty what the US and the NATO countries did to Roma population. And here I'm asking one of the women in that camp. She's from Kosovo, Ashkalia. And I asked her here, does she get any help? She says, barely anything. And I asked her, do you have a husband? And she said, yes, I have a husband, but he went to work. And I'm like, where is he working? Well, he went to the garbage containers to dig in the garbage to see what's there available. Now we are back to Kosovo. We are in Obilic. Obilic is notorious for the electric power plant. So we are still in Obilic. As you can see, the same scenario, nothing changed, only destruction of the homes and So that's the story from Kosovo. And do we have enough time, Veronica? Who is keeping the track of time?
Einfach weitermachen, sofort mit der Interview mit ihr.
I mean, Shani, you keep track of the time. I'm just a technical moderator.
Okay, and so now can I share my screen with you all?
Yeah, you should be able to.
Okay, so what did I do? Are you there? All right. How can I get to my desktop?
So Shani, maybe you can send it over to me, and until we solved it, maybe the next contribution can be done.
Okay, so I can stop here, and it's already 20 minutes, more or less. And then in the meantime, I can send you this, Veronica.
Yes.
All right. You can switch to the next guest. So who would be the next?
I would maybe introduce, if it's possible, Mrs. Diana Post, because she is somebody who was also from beginning also in this tragedy and judging and whatever, and then we can skip to us. What do you think? Sorry.
Yeah, please do. So, Diana?
Okay, well, my name is Diane Post. I'm an attorney, and at the time I was working at the European Roma Rights Center. I left there, but I took the cases with me. This is a long and tortuous journey that we've been on with these cases. But we started out focusing on the health and safety and life of the people who were placed in the lead poison camps. It started because of a death in the camps, which of course is a war crime. This was a child who died from being poisoned by lead poisoning. So I'll be going through it quick. I'll try to make it non-lawyery so that non-lawyers can understand the way that this went. So the first thing that we did was I filed what's called a third-party lawsuit for the people who were in the camps. Leposavic, Zhitkovits, geez, I can't even remember now. There were 4 of them anyway. And we filed a lawsuit locally with a local attorney under the local law, saying that they had been poisoned by the toxic substances. We have to do that because you have to first show that you tried local remedies and they didn't work. Well, of course it didn't work. Nobody did anything, and they still haven't. So from when that didn't work, then we went to the United Nations, and I filed what's called a third-party claim, which is a non-country filing against something the UN has done wrong. And that procedure exists, except they don't ever follow it. So I filed the third-party complaint of 480 Roma who were in the various camps who had signed up to be my clients. Well, that went on and on and on and on. And I started all this in 2005, by the way. So that went on, and they denied the third-party complaint, saying this was a political complaint and not a complaint of harm to people, which was absolutely untrue and a lie. So then from there, I went to the European Roma Rights Center. They denied the case, saying they didn't have any jurisdiction, i.e. they did not have the right to bring the UN into the court at the European Court of Human Rights. That failed. So then I filed at the Human Rights Advisory Panel in Kosovo, which is a legal panel that UNMIK itself set up. Well, the first thing the UN did was say they don't have any jurisdiction over you either. So they said, well, we would take the case, but we can't because our bosses, the UN, said we can't. Well, time passed, things happened. And after the third party complaint in New York was denied, I went back to HRAP because they had left a tiny little window open for me. So I went back to them, and the second time around, then they took the case. So then we litigated the case, and they finally issued a decision in 2016. So 10 years had now passed, and they finally issued a decision in 2016. And the decision had two parts. Number one, the UN had to apologize for what they did. And secondly, they had to pay compensation. Children had died. Older people had died. Many people were permanently injured with eye problems, kidney problems, other kinds of problems because of the lead poisoning. Children were hyperactive, were aggressive, and had other kinds of problems because of the lead poisoning. So they were supposed to issue compensation and health care for the people who had been negatively impacted. They did none of that. They refused to even apologize because they won't admit they did anything, and they fear that that would be an admission. There was an advisor who had recommended to the new Secretary General Gutierrez when he came in that he should apologize, and then that was shot down as well. So they've never apologized, and they never paid a dime. They claim to be starting a trust fund, which instead of giving compensation directly to the people who were injured by their actions, they were just going to do broad social programs for the Roma community in Kosovo. Well, we objected to that because that wasn't what the lawsuit was about. Well, that trust fund didn't go anywhere anyway. I think Germany is the only one that contributed, and they contributed 10,000 American dollars, and nobody else contributed anything. So that never happened, and nothing ever happened. So we go on and we keep complaining. And the other thing that we did, the two other things that we did on the property issues, because of the theft of the property and the damage to the property, we filed local property claims, again, hired a local attorney to file local claims saying, this is my property and I want to move back onto it. And this was the village, the Mahalo, where they had been living, which was near the riverfront. Well, of course, the city wanted that property. And so we lost our cases because they said, well, you don't have the proper paperwork. Well, of course we don't, you burned it up, right? So of course we couldn't get the paperwork, but we had tax bills, we had utility bills, we had mail to that property, to those people. So we had some documents proving this was their property. However, the court ruled against us and said, you can't prove it's your property, even though they've been living there for 500 years. So of course we lost that. And of course they have taken the property, which is a war crime in itself, and paid them no compensation whatsoever for this property. So continuing on, trying to get some recompense for their injuries, after ULUX took over, UNMIK left Kosovo, ULUX took over from the European Union. So I sued ULUX. And they said, oh, well, you have to first sue the local people because, of course, I already did. I said, well, I already did that. You have to exhaust remedies in a legal procedure. You have to exhaust your lower court remedies before you can go to a higher court. So I had already done that. So they said, oh, well, let's ask the local people. Now, mind you, 15 years have passed by this time. And so the local prosecutor said, we're still investigating it. 15 years after it happened, we're still investigating it. So it was quite clear again to the ULUX panel, which is a different panel, not the Human Rights Advisory panel, but a different one they had set up that the European Union had set up. So again, litigated this case all the way through then, and they told ULUX, you have to investigate. Well, ULUX said, well, we don't have jurisdiction. I mean, it was a long, involved argument. But again, we won the case in which they said, you must investigate these crimes that were committed against the Roma, both the theft of the property and the harm to their life and safety and health. Well, that never happened either. So here we are, we've won 2 cases and got no remedy. So the decision from the HRAP that came down and said you have to apologize and pay compensation was in February 2016. And here we are, 5 years down the road, nothing happened. We've tried every kind of pressure that we can put on them, and nothing works but public opinion. We've gone through special rapporteurs, we've gone through secretary generals, we've done what we can, but nothing works but public pressure. So the next step that we're taking is going to be from the Roma People's Project from the Columbia University in New York. They're having an event where they're sponsoring an event on May 26th, which will be a panel about toxic substances, primarily lead, the world over. So Kosovo and that decision will be a mainstay in that panel because we're one of the few that actually have a decision saying this is bad and you have to compensate the injured people for it. So that issue, that case, and also one of the other speakers besides me will be a person who sat on that panel that made that decision, one of the lawyers that sat on the panel. So the other cases will be the Flint, Michigan case, which they have won and have been ordered to pay as well. And that's in the United States and in US courts. And so there's some way to enforce it. Whereas with the UN decision, there's no way to enforce it. I'm still trying to figure out ways to enforce it. But so far, I haven't found any. So that's on the 26th. We're also going to talk about the lead poisoning of the people in Peru and Lesbos, Greece, on the refugee camps in Lesbos, Greece. So those are the 4 different areas pointing out that this is an international problem of a toxic substance and environmental degradation. And therefore, the UN has to be involved and has to take action. So this has been the long and torturous road of this lawsuit, which is still going on and will continue to go on until one of 2 things happens. Either the United Nations pays compensation to the 180 clients that I have, some of whom have died since this started, and some of whom knew they would be dead, but their children will be able to get what they should have gotten, or I die. One of the 2 things will end this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you so much for being on the side of the underdog. We really appreciate your courage and really huge respect from all the Roma communities and activists. Now, I think we can move on into the next speaker. Ricardo. Are you there, Ricardo? Esma?
Guten Tag, ja, ich bin da. Ja, ich höre Sie.
Haydi Prala.
Ja.
Waker.
Okay, Veronika, kannst du zeigen diese Film, was von Arte?
Ja.
Bitte. Ob man das hören, hört man das alles? Okay, das ist in Kosovska Mitrovica.
Also man hört nichts, ja?
Ah, gut. Okay, das ist in Kosovska Mitrovica, in der Südteil von Kosovska Mitrovica. Sehen Sie, das ist diese Dania, das ist der Fluss Ibar, getrennt zwischen Nordseite und Südseite. Auf Südseite ist Kosovo-Teil und auf Nordseite ist der serbische Teil und auch Kvor. Und das haben sie nach dem Frieden, nachdem diese unterschriebene Vereinbarung der Kosovska Mitrovica geteilt auf 2 Teile. Und das ist jetzt im Südteil, wie die Menschen da leben. Und jetzt werden wir das das ist alles in 2014. Das ist jetzt mein Haus. Das ist mein Haus am Bayer. Wir haben da gelebt, wo viele serbische Nachbarn lebten und auch wo viele albanische Leute, Familie lebten. Und wir Roma waren nur 2 oder 3 Häuser. Und das ist mein Haus jetzt in 2014. In diesem Haus ist nachdem diese NATO, wo Angriff auf die Roma war, hat sich eine albanische Familie eingezogen und dann haben sie uns alle Sachen genommen. Und sehen Sie jetzt, wie war vor dem Krieg, meine ich, 80er oder 90er Jahren. Das ist meine Mutter, das ist mein Neffe, das ist meine Schwester. Das ist mein Klavier. Scheika, meine Schwester, hat dieses Klavier gekauft, weil ich wollte nach Belgrad studieren, dirigieren. Und dann sie haben für mich ein Instrument gekauft. Das ist mein Vater. Und das ist, wo er bis Ende geblieben ist. Und das werde ich Ihnen die Geschichte erzählen. Wie hat diese Krieg erlebt, dieser Angriff, kako se zove taj rat, Pogrom, diese ethnische Säuberung. Aber das werde ich Ihnen erzählen kurz nach dem Film. Das heißt, wir haben in Tito-Zeit in Jugoslawien alle Völker gut gelebt. Alle, albanische, serbische, alle. Das war wie ein Paradies. Und die Roma, das ist meine Schwester und das ist jetzt meine Frau. Wir haben gesehen, nach diesem beginnenden NATO-Angriff haben die serbische Regierung gesagt bei Vater im März 99, er muss sofort dieses Haus am Bayer verlassen, weil dieser Teil ist nicht sicher. Und Vater ist dann im März, April, Mai und Juni in Mahala in Fabrička gelebt. Ja? Und da war eine Sicherheit, selbstverständlich, das war Krieg. Und jetzt zeige ich Ihnen die Grabszene.
Dann machen wir jetzt Pause.
Ja.
Dürfen wir ganz kurz, Entschuldigung, Bruder Ricardo,
ja?
Eine kurze Übersetzung
Ja.
in Englisch?
Soll ich das machen? Okay, so just a very short sum up from my side. Ricardo was showing the house where his family was at home before the war. So you could see the house in the condition which is now, which he visited together with his wife. And you could also see it in these projections in the time before the war with his family. You could see his sister and his mother and his first piano. So you could see that before the war, during the Tito time, the Romani people and also the Serbian and Albanian people were living together in peace and in very good and comfortable conditions. But in March 1999, the Serbian government afforded the father of Ricardo, who you could also see in the last projection picture, to leave the house and to move to the Fabrička Mahala, where then he was living in between March and June 1999. And now we will see a scene from the cemetery, and Ricardo will continue the explanation.
Das ist jetzt die Grabszene, das heißt 2014, das heißt von 1999 bis 2014, niemand hat die Gräber besucht. Sehen Sie, wie groß ist, man kann sie nicht finden. Sehen Sie die Gras, fast 1 Meter. Alle jugendlichen Menschen leben nicht mehr da. Wer wird diese Grab Ordnung bringen? Das ist 600 Jahre Generation, wo die Roma gelebt haben. Sie haben Kinder, Familie. Das ist meine Mutter.
So,
Meine Mutter hat gelebt, Gott sei Dank, vor dem Krieg.
So this is the cemetery where the Romani people were buried for 600 years. So many generations were buried on this cemetery. But the problem is that between 1999 and 2014, where this film was made, no one could visit and take care of this cemetery and of these graves. So the grass was very high, and it was not even possible to properly find the graves. But in the end, the grave of Ricardo's mother was found. And
I have a question. Isima Yek Pucipe, Ricardo.
Moment, sehen Sie, das ist jetzt Mahala in 2014, eine Inszenierung von West. Okay, Sie können jetzt beenden, Veronika, diesen Film, ja? Ja, das ist, Sie haben gesehen, wie haben Sie die Inszenierung von der Mahala, was ich als Kind kenne, haben Sie Häuser gesehen. Die Roma haben sie nicht am Müll gelebt. Das ist eine Baracke, wo haben sie alle jugendlichen Menschen von ganzer Welt, meine ich von Europa, auch von Deutschland, auch. Und sie haben sie und von inszeniert, dass sie eingezogen da und dass sie nie da gelebt haben. Und alle diese Roma, wo haben sie gelebt wie mein Vater, mein Großopa und alle war neben der Brücke, neben der Ibar und 600 Häuser. Ich möchte hier sagen, wie ist passiert diese Pogrom. Vielleicht,
Ja.
Veronika, sagst du das, was habe ich gesagt und dann mache weiter.
Yeah. In the end, we saw a kind of village or mahala where the Romani people live now in the present time. And Ricardo explained that this mahala is very new. This is not a place where the Roma used to live. It's another place which was built artificially in a way. So you could see that situation. And now he would like to explain a little bit more about the specific situation, how the pogrom on the Roma happened.
Nach dem Frieden, Kosovo-Vertrag, nach ein paar Tagen, wahrscheinlich nach 20 Tagen, vielleicht Ende Juni 99, mein Vater Shaban Sahiti erzählte. Am Tagsüber kamen die Franzosen, der albanische Volk, aggressiv mit Traktoren und Lastwagen, zusammen mit Učička-Armee. Sie gehen in Häuser, sie nehmen alles, was haben die Roma Jahrhunderten geschafft für ihre Kinder. Die Franzosen helfen, zusammen mit Učička-Armee. Französischer Soldat hat eine Waffe, ein Gewehr auf meinen Vater angerichtet, hat gesagt, Befehl, verlassen Sie das Haus. Mein Vater erklärt, er ist jugoslawischer Staatsangehöriger wie die Kosovo-Albaner. Er hat genau recht, wie alle Zivilisten auf diese zivilisierte Teil zu leben. Franzose sagt, weg. Und dann Vater nimmt die Tasche und Sakko und sieht, wie die Kinder weinen, wie die Frauen schreien. Und am Ende verbrennen sie vor den Augen alle Häuser. Und dann diese Roma, gehen sie zur Nordseite der Kosovska Mitrovica. Das sind 3-4 Kilometer zu Fuß. Kommen sie zu serbische Sicherheit und der französische Sicherheit. Die serbische Sicherheit sagt, das ist nicht möglich. Sie müssen zurück. Vater sagte, nein, wir können nicht zurück. Das läuft, das ist der Mahala Fabrička vernichtet. Und Vater ist dann noch 10 Tage da geblieben. Und haben wir gehört, in unserem Haus, wo haben Sie bei Anfang der Film gesehen, ist eine albanische Familie eingezogen. Übersetzung.
So how the situation happened exactly. After the peace contract of Kosovo, approximately 20 days after this peace agreement, it has to be end of June 99. Something happened which the father of Ricardo Sahiti, which name is Shaban Sahiti, explained. There came French soldiers to the Fabrička Mahala where they were living, together with Albanian population, which very aggressively came with trucks and with the UÇK army. And they entered all the houses of the Romani people and took everything what the Romani people had created since centuries. The French soldiers actually helped the Albanian civilists and Albanian UÇK army to do that. The French soldier said to the father of Ricardo to leave his house, and he actually pointed a weapon on him and threatened him with a weapon to leave his house. The father tried to explain that they are also citizens of Yugoslavia and that they have the same rights as the Albanic population, but the French soldier sent him away. So his father just had to take his bag and his jacket, and he had to leave. Of course, the children were crying and the women were screaming, but at the end, it didn't help anything. The houses were burned down, and the Romani population had to leave to the other side of Kosovska Mitrovica, to the north side, to the Serbian side, which was about 2 or 3 kilometers. So they walked there, and then the Serbian security tried to send them away as well. They said they can't stay there, they have to go back. But the father of Ricardo explained that there is nowhere to go back because the Fabrička Mahala, the Romani district, is all destroyed. So the father stayed there for 10 days. And after that, they realized that in the house of the family, now an Albanic family is staying and living.
Mein Vater dann hat nach 10 Tagen, wo hat gesehen, gibt es nicht mehr Zukunft in Kosovska Mitrovica, ist mit seinem Bruder Braha Sahiti mit dem Taxi nach Belgrad bei Schwester gefahren. Da ist ein paar Monate geblieben und dann später ist nach Subotica bei seinem Bruder Ismail Sahiti. Mein Vater hat einen Schlaganfall bekommen und er ist gestorben in Subotica. 400 Kilometer von meiner Mutter, weil einige Menschen wollten sie mehr Land links oder mehr Land rechts. Das ist die Geschichte als Opfer und Erlebnis von meinem Vater.
So after the 10 days in Kosovska Mitrovica in the Serbian side, the father of Ricardo saw that there is no future there. So together with his brother Braham, he took a taxi to Belgrade to the sister, where they stayed a few months. After that stay in Belgrade, they moved to Subotice, to another brother Ismail, where the father of Ricardo unfortunately got a brain stroke and he died 400 kilometers away from the mother of Ricardo because they got separated in the process of this pogrom.
Ja, das heißt, noch letzte, alle meine Sachen, Klavier, Partituren von Beethoven, Tchaikovsky, Brahms, Mozart, Schallplatten existieren nicht mehr. Alles haben sie genommen. Alles. Okay, danke.
So it means also all the properties of Ricardo, the piano and all the music pieces which he had, everything is destroyed and taken away.
I have a few questions for him. Ricardo,
Ja,
Veronica, if you can go with the images just to stop the photo above the graves. I think I know that location. O grobia kaj sine?
Ja.
Sine o te kali puv.
Ja.
Dali sine od ova o depoziste kotaro a little bit back? Yes, stop
Ja,
it.
Trepča, das ist Trepča, ja.
Yeah, that is where akategani sine o Romano campi.
Aha, okay.
This is the lead poison. Otrovno kotaro olovo, akate besle o Roma. Diana, this is the site where was the lead poisoning camp. And you know the story about this, Ricardo, akategani prvo sine o vojnikia kotaro UN. Here on this side, first were the soldiers from UN and NATO's forces. But after several months, some of the soldiers from UN and NATO forces got lead poisoning, and they immediately took all the soldiers away.
It was the French.
Yes. And so nobody could give any testimony, and UN forbidden to anyone to talk about this site.
I have the tests.
Yes. Alanjanma, Ricardo, akategani kerje o campi.
Okay, habe verstanden. Ja, ich habe verstanden. Ja,
Okay. And so, Ricardo,
Ja.
koa chilo tukano Kosova kana?
Sami, das heißt, in Kosovo ist nur eine Tante, Jevahira, wo sie war in der Filmszene, und sie hatten Haus auf 2 Stöcke. Ich verstehe nicht, welche Familie hat so Reichtum. Sie sind einzige in Kosovska Mitrovica ist geblieben. Und sie lebt selbstverständlich auf die Nordseite von Kosovska Mitrovica. Nordseite. In Süd niemand lebt, nicht niemand.
Okay, obsasto, Ricardo. Dankeschön, vielen, Bruder. I think we should move now to the next, unless somebody has some question for Ricardo. I would like to go to our colleague and sister, Nisa Chete.
Also, Kako Gratan had a question.
Yes, I had a question really for Diana, because I just wanted to understand when you got to start proceedings in I think in New York, what court, what was the name of that court, just to have a proper understanding?
It wasn't a court. It's the
No.
United Nations third-party claim, and it's through their own legal office, which is ridiculous because you can't police yourself. And we know that. But that's the system that we have, which is, or that they have, which is that they have their own legal office that considers and rules on the complaints against them. So there's
Okay.
really no accountability.
No,
And
no,
that's
no.
one thing we're going to push in our May 26th workshop, is
Good.
that there needs to be some outside accountability mechanism for the United Nations.
Yeah. So just as a matter of interest, is that in the main UN building that we see often? Yeah, in that main building. Because I asked that because we have a plan for people to be there outside. Perhaps that should coincide with your activities, but we can discuss that later. Yeah, thank you.
And no questions anymore. So I'll go to our sister and colleague, Nisa Chete.
Hi, everyone. I will try to give you an overview about the situation from 1999 till today. When in 1999 the Roma people fled from Germany, they fled from Kosovo and came to Germany. Many of them goes to the cities where they have families. For example, in Northern Westphalia, I'm living in Essen in Northern Westphalia. There was a very big group who had a family in a town, and then they went all the people there. And the German foreign authority, they didn't say to these people that they can go to the federal office for migration for application like asylum seeker, but they just been registered there and get Duldung, that is something like a toleration. It's not permit residence. And I think I think this was just because for the German society, they had no idea that in Kosovo are living minorities. They just know that there are living Albanian people and Serbian, but no minorities. In all cases, it was also the same. We fled 1993, and nobody knows about something Roma or Hashkari or whatever. This was also the reason that we didn't say that we are Roma, we say we are Albanians. And 1999, that was not possible more. For me, for me, like a person, I had the problem to say now that I'm Albanian because my family had been very bad treated. I lost many of my family in this war. And 2001, there was the first Vereinbarungen, bilaterally treatment between Germany and the Bosnia or Kosovo, and there was the first regulation that they are speaking about the deportation to Germany, from Germany to Kosovo, mostly for Albanian people. But under this Albanian people was many Roma people, like my family. So that 2004, we get a letter that we have to leave Germany now. And if we don't leave Germany, we have to be deported. And this was a very particular situation for me, because this was the time when I make my exam. And someone who study a juridical process knows what that means to prepare for exam. And then I had the panic that they can come in the night and take us and bring us to Kosovo. It was a nightmare for me. I dreamed about this situation, but then we began and we said to the authority that we are no Albanian, we are Roma. This was the first situation, but they didn't believe us. And then my family, my mother and my father, they went to a person who is called Nicholas von Holte. He's from Pax Christi, and he knows the situation 1999, particularly in my village where I'm coming from, so that he spoke with my family, and then he made a letter, and then they believed us and they put us away from this list. Mm-hmm. And from 2000, this was the beginning when the German authority, German publicity has an idea that in Kosovo are some minorities, and it was not easy for them, because they had forced the UCK with the NATO bombardation, and now they have to say that these people now are the offenders and not more the victims, and this you have to justify for the publicity, and that is not so easy. In Northern Westphalia, we have much of degrees, so that they say, okay, for Roma people, there will be no deportation, just people who make some crimes or something like that, until participation of the bureau from CAFO, from the United Mission. And 2005, we get the first migration law in Germany named Zuwanderungsgesetz, and there was the possibility to get a permit residence. But this law doesn't been used. They already let the persons in the status of Duldung, and the government, that's my opinion, they failed to integrate the Roma people, the Roma into the society, because they get no chance to learn a language or to get some offer for jobs or something like that. I had a case, and it was a guy, he fled 2000 in he was, I think, 8 or 9 old. In Kosovo, he get no school, he was not to school. And then he came to Germany, and he was in a camp, in different camp. And the first time when he goes to school, he was 10 years. And it was obviously that he cannot learn the language if he don't have some support for that language. And the result was that he left the school with no degree, and he never had the chance to get a job who's well paid. He gets some job who is not so good, and then for the German regulation, you always have to earn your own money. If you get the social help, then you have no chance to get some permanent residence. And the tragedy was, I had a legal process, but it was the social court. I remind that it was at the beginning of my career, and it was about the social help. The authority gives Roma people who lived in a city just less social help that they can have. And the argument for that was they abuse the social help. So that I make a claim, and I go to the social court, and I can remember I sat there with the judge, and I said all these things to him, what's happened with the Roma 1999, and he had no idea about that. So I make a very large writings, and with many of reports and facts, so that he gave, and then he make a decision, and all these people get the money that they should get from the beginning. And this is just the example. That means that no, we have people who are living in this status of Duldung about 20 years, 25 years. And this is in a contradiction about some integration, because if you always have a fear that you can be deported, you cannot, without the help from someone else, you cannot fly. You can do something, but you need the help. And but this is what can I say, the reality, that they ignore this. Thank you.
Thank you, Nizakete.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, sister. I have a question for you. I dealt with these cases also from California, because at that time we would send the books about ethnic cleansing, what happened in 98 and 99, especially aftermath of 78 days of humanitarian bombing. Yeah. Can you explain to us the situation? As I understand, Duldung mean temporary protection, but also with a clause that German authority can deport you at any given time. Can you specify the situation about the Duldung? But I think that is a trap for Roma.
Duldung is nothing else but registered illegality. So that you have no permanent residence, you cannot get. It is the other time you are not safe. That means you have to live the country, you have to live German, but at the moment, they don't deport you, but they can came. And the government changes the law, signed 2000 and I think 10 years, maybe something like that. The authority are not obligated to inform you that you will be deported, so that they can come and take you. We have some degrees that they cannot came in the night, okay, when there is a family with little children, but I had so many cases that they came to the night.
Well,
and now I have one decision. It is about Albania. So they can, the judge said you cannot came to the night because the flight they get their plan how to land, and this is 10 o'clock in the morning. So they come at the 2 o'clock in the night, take the whole family, and they came with the policy. They are armed, and you have a situation where the person are sick because they are traumatized. They have, you understand? Okay, yes, and this is a shock. And for the children, this must be the hell. I just know the nightmare. I've been dreamed about this policy who is coming with their yes, a Stiefel, no? I don't know the word.
What was that?
Stiefel?
With the boots.
Boot, yes, with these military boots. And in my head, I just hear the steps. And it must be a nightmare. It must be a nightmare for children when they come in the night and wake you up from the bed, and you have maybe 10 minutes or 20 minutes for packing your baggage, and they are there and they are listening to you and they're looking to you. So you cannot think about other things. Maybe you can take for your children from the school,
the school materials and the books.
Yeah, okay. You don't think about that. And when you are in Kosovo or in Serbia, or I don't know, you cannot say that you was in school because you have no documents for that. And so in my career, it is I just can, all the discussion that we have at the moment about the racism and about the words, how we say to that or to that. For me, it is so I don't can understand that, because I see that. I get a call and they say to me, oh, my family is taken. They are no other airplane and they go back to. This is a tragedy for the family who is living here about 20 years.
Nisacete, I am trying to connect the dots a little bit. And because at that time, starting from 2000, I would go on a regular basis from California to Kosovo and to check in the situation. And I know there were, in 2008 especially, when the Kosovo was as an independent state, but also in the meantime, Bosnia got independent states, Montenegro, Macedonia, and Croatia, which at that time, the German authority was deporting at a massive scale the Roma people. And guess what happened when the Roma come there in Kosovo? Each family gets somewhere around 250 euros from the German government. They put them on the airplane and they drop them in Serbia or Kosovo.
Yes, I know that. I have also an example. In this city where I'm living, in Essen, There was a Roma community who lives in container, okay? And here was a society who take this container, send them to Serbia and put this container in Serbia. And then, because 2006, it was the first moment when the people can come to permit residence. And it is a practice that before the people can come into residence, so that clean at the first, and just to see how who is still there, and if is someone still there, then can give them a residence. And it was something like an action, so that they called many of Roma community here in Essen to the foreigners bureau and tell them that they have an opportunity in Serbia to for exist, to make
to survive,
not to survive, but to begin a new life.
Oh,
okay? Because they get some money and then they can grow some shops or something like that, and they have a home because
a new life. How you can build a new life with 250 euros?
I just want to explain what it is. You cannot you cannot understand that. And they said to them, you can go to Serbia and you can live there. You have the money for us, and you have then your home because we send this container there. So they make a pressure. It was not voluntary, you know. They make a big pressure. That is not a deportation. That is something else. Freiwillige Ausreise, it's called in Germany. And the people understand that. They get this help and go back. And after 2 years, they come back to Germany. Then they will deported one more time. Then they come back. It is something like a circle.
A vicious circle.
Okay, it is devil's circle.
We have a really interesting story, because right now I am in Kosovo, and I found some of the people who work in this office for the deported people.
Yeah.
And I'm in Gračanica, and one of the head of the guy who was running this system was Albanian, believe it or not. And he says openly to me, you know what, we had maybe 2 or 3, maximum 5 returnees from Germany, but we make that number so much higher, so the German and the European Union send us more money.
Yes, it is all about the money.
Really kind of like organized crime and mafia, because Nisachete, I'm sorry, I don't want to take your time, but I am on the field right now here in Kosovo. And this is really, I don't know how to deal with these issues, because my family is affected as well. I didn't see any atrocities, but I had 13 family members that lived in Pristina. And somebody had to pay the price for this, our suffering, for our people. And now I hope with Kako Gratan and other Roma activists, we can go in the different channels, how we can shake up the news and the public opinion, because that is the most important for us and the Roma. And then we had some questions here. Sebastian Curtici, is there a way to seek redress or compensation for these proven practices? And also, yeah, I think this is the question for Diana. Sorry.
Yeah, there were 2 questions in there. One was, did we go to the European Court of Human Rights? And yes, we did. They rejected the case because they said they have no jurisdiction over the United Nations. They have no right to bring the United Nations into the European Court of Human Rights. So that's jurisdiction. If you don't have it, you can't do it. So that was lost. And the second part about the compensation, of course, that is what we're trying to do in the lawsuit NM versus UNMIC, which we're still pushing. And we did win and get an order to pay compensation. They just won't do it. But we did try some other techniques. And you might think about this as a way to move forward with these other people who are not my clients, but other people who were damaged by this. Couple of things. Number one was we tried to sue a country, because if you sue a country, then you can bring the case to the International Court of Justice, and there's an enforcement mechanism. We knew we would have problems with the UN because there's no enforcement mechanism. You can't bring, well, an individual can't bring the UN to the International Court of Justice. A country can. So we tried to sue a country. Well, Kosovo wasn't a country yet. I'm not sure it still is. So we said, okay, let's sue Albania. No, because Albania would simply say, we're at war with them. It's not our fault. We didn't do it. So we said, well, let's sue Serbia for failing to protect them, especially the ones on their border. And the Roma client said, absolutely not, because Serbia was the only one giving them any social assistance or any medical care. So the Roma themselves, my clients, said, absolutely not. Well, I have to do what my clients tell me. So we couldn't do that. All right. So then we had another idea, which was to ask a country to come with us as a plaintiff or an intervener. So we asked Serbia and we asked France. And France, because of their own poisoning at the Osterov site and their own proof, which we have of that poisoning. So and also there was the first SRSG, Secretary General, was a French doctor who had made many public statements about how the poisoning was an absolute health crisis. It was a contamination. It was a disaster, etc. And he wouldn't let it go on. And then he let it go on. So we tried to use France or Serbia, and they both said no. But the problem is, if you don't sue a country, an individual cannot take UN to the International Court of Justice. So that's where we got stuck.
Diana, Kosovo is independent.
Yeah.
We can sue the Kosovo now. 2008 was Kosovo declared by by George W. Bush, as an independent country. And many countries followed, except Spain, China, and Russia. And so now my other question to you is, Diana, how can UN go in the war countries when UN Security Council did not approve this war? Just because of that, also we can sue United Nations, because the Security Council did not voted to approve this war in Kosovo.
Right. But you've still got to have a country. Otherwise, when they refuse to pay, as they have in my case, then you have no enforcement mechanism.
Can you elaborate that?
Yes. The International Court of Justice is the only court that I have found that can actually hold the UN accountable. There's been one case there where a country sued the UN. I forgot what for now, but there's been one case. So the International Court of Justice can hold them accountable and enforce a decision. However, only a country can bring a case to the International Court of Justice. An individual or an organization cannot. So my case, which is individuals, cannot bring a case at the International Court of Justice. They don't have that word jurisdiction again. And jurisdiction is a decision made at the time of the founding of that institution, whatever it is, the European Court of Human Rights or ICJ or whatever it is. They make a written rules and procedures about how to behave. And if they don't have jurisdiction, the right to bring the case, you can't bring it. So at the time I brought my case, Kosovo was not a country, we couldn't sue them. You might be able to now, but it wasn't possible back then.
I don't think we can succeed something with via Kosovo, but we might have a chance with the Serbian government to sue.
May I ask here, if the country suing would have to have some interest other than, you know, an altruistic motive. Could it be
Yes. Yes.
a totally neutral country who had no personal interest in the case could bring such a case?
They have to have a person living there. For example, we've tried to find the bad guys living in the US, so then we could bring it here. But we haven't been able to do that either. So yes, they have to have an interest. Something
They
happened
do have
on
to have
their
an interest.
land.
Yeah.
Something happened to their people.
One of their
Something
citizens,
happened
yeah.
to their economy. Something happened to them. Yes, they have to have an interest of some
Okay.
kind, but it can be many different kinds.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
Diana, I don't know if you saw the question of Ramiza Sakib to you as well regarding the Strasbourg, the court.
Well, I only see two questions. I'm sorry, which one is it?
She asked you specifically, does European Roma Rights Center gave these cases to Roma
European Court of Human Rights. Yes, I answered that.
Yeah, okay.
And I said, yes, we went and they denied it.
All right. Okay, so I think, Ratan, Prala, go ahead.
Yes, I would like to get in here because I'd like to set this in more of a context of what is happening more generally. Because when we were planning the Jubilee Congress, and of course we've had great celebrations of 8th of April yesterday, we determined that there must be action following the Congress, in the Congress and following the Congress. And of course, yesterday, many young people marched to the Berlin Memorial to try to save it against destruction by the German railways. I don't have to go into that. But I connect what happened in the Holocaust, the great genocide, and see what happened in Kosovo as the greatest abuse of the Romani people since the Second World War, since the great genocide of the Nazi era. And I believe, and others who discuss this, believe that Kosovo is at this moment somewhat politically vulnerable. They do have a case involving the former president of Kosovo. There is a new government who may wish to have better relations, who may obviously want to get further recognition around the world and perhaps even to join the EU at some time or be involved with NATO. That gives us an opportunity, I think, to do something. And one of the chief platforms of our campaign, which Ahmed Ibrahimi will speak about in a moment, I hope, is the idea that there should be a special memorial day for what happened in Kosovo during those two crisis years. And that's quite a very small step, but it could be a public step. And I very much welcome the news that on the 16th of May, Columbia University is getting involved. And I hope that somehow we can align ourselves with this, because we did have plans to have a presence outside the UN building around that time. So I shall certainly.
26th of May, 26th.
Oh, 26th, okay. 26th of May, yeah. Right.
Should we move on?
So the week, that week could be very crucial for us. When discussing in the Kosovo team, a team has been working and having regular meetings for many weeks now, what should we call the events in Kosovo? And generally speaking, we're referring it to now as a pogrom and an ethnic cleansing. Those are the two words we've hit upon at the moment. I remember back in the 1970s, and I returned there because we should see that the possibilities that lie ahead of us. In the 70s, it was possible to go to Pristina, to sit down with Albanian politicians and negotiate something. Now, at that time, they were generally around, as people will know, around Kosovo, the Roma were under threat and pressure. to disclose themselves as being Albanian, because when you look at the ID, the names are very, very similar, the same names. And the pressure was, you must identify yourself in the next census as Albanian so that the statistics would raise up to that point. But the thing that I'm trying to make out is that I believe that if we get this campaign going, it would be possible to return to Kosovo, to return to that situation where we can talk across the table to the Albanian authorities, the Kosovo Albanian authorities, and get some kind of negotiation going with them. Because as Barry Fisher was saying, if we do fail in court, never mind, because if we have created that political will and the political wave, we will have some negotiation power and some leverage to get some kind of whatever we want, some kind of settlement out of court on various important points. So I set that as the background, and we shall be working very hard to make something positive come out of this Congress and of the Congress work on Kosovo. And I don't know if it's my place now, but I would like to ask Ibrahimi, because we've been corresponding about the wording of the resolution and so on, if he would introduce the resolution, and then I will, if it's okay by you, Ahmed, I would give out a shorter version in English so that everybody understands that we are asking for
Can you
the
read?
13th of June to be a day of remembrance this year and forever after. Ed.
Prala Gratan, can you read the resolution of Ahmed Ibrahimi, please?
Well, I would like,
And then
Magavo
I would
Ahmed,
introduce him.
Bakaral Sosi Sonia Nasha Resolution, i Romani chip, e me palek Bakaral Ingleski chip.
Hajde, Sarmange, kako gra.
A me Magavo Ahmed Bakaral.
Hajde, Ahmed Amaro Romano filmsko directori. He's the film director, activist, and he comes from Pristina. And Prala Ahmed Shukara Viljan. Hajde, vakeramenge. Shunele Amen. Ahmed.
You need to open your mic.
O mikrofoni. O mikrofoni.
Mislim, samo ker žal kako graten mesi mo Ahmeti Andri Priština. Predstavim žume Romengije rezolucijo. Na ġenava kan dal ċitinġentu meno deja rezolucija sari šran. Ano deja rezolucija kratko si žedinđum, kratko sadržaj, so desinđapa mencar. Emsar finale dole rezolucijako predložinđum ti kira mara romano dive, romandri Kosova. Namerno da verinđum distrito juni, koske distrito juni 1000 dešvinjato veš, posminđa tačno dva progon pekalo Roma. Posminđete paldene Rome. I od dva progon trajinđan disevi divesa, palo do vas sazav šinđape. Ja kana baci čitinđeno da je rezolucija, šajte postavirem pučipa pitanje u vezi rezoluciju, u vezi status, Romengo status Arijani Priština, bud bučenge šajte predstavinen. Valjal neko te vakirol engleski Diana Kateo ina general romane, a me vakira samo romane.
Okay.
Shani.
May I just maybe make it short? What our brother Ahmed said was that he proposed a kind of a resolution where we have maybe to take some.
I'm going to read it in English in a moment.
Great. It's just about the previous idea of the 13th of June that we have something like that was the official ending of the war, but nobody recognized the situation from our minority. and the wish was to have something like a resolution. This is not finished, it's just a proposal. This is how I also understand it in our group, was that we have something like a first draft from this. And there was something like, may we also be allowed to say about also what Kakogratan say, there are words like ethnic cleanings or pogroms. And this is also, to Mrs. Post, the question, would you also say that this is a pogrom, what happened in Kosovo? Is it in the right of right and judicative? Is it clear or is it less? Because we have also to know that it's not about just that this material what is destroyed and people have some pain or some traumas.
Trauma, post-traumatic
Not
stress.
only this, but they also lost their relatives. So they lost a lot of hope. And this is something that we have to take all together. And now we know that the prime minister came to judge now because we know it before. And there was something like, we know that something happened what is against human right, but also against the law. How we can make a paper, a resolution that is fixed on basics, that is clear that we can go to judge people for this because it's against humanity what has happened in Kosovo. Yeah, and maybe Kakogratan can make a small draft of the first, or it's our first draft of this resolution, and it's not the end, so it's just the beginning. And maybe we need people who are also lawyers and who are in this field who can support us to make it real, because this is the beginning. Until the 13th of June, we would like to have something what is proper. And also to give it for the 26th of May to the people and to say, this is a draft, this is a paper, please work with this.
Can we go back to Ahmed now? Hamza, I'm
Well,
sorry, I was away for a second.
No, I'm going to read the
Okay.
resolution because we've got that time. Yes, we do want, obviously, the best advice we can get from lawyers to get the words right in this resolution. But there is a difference, of course, between a resolution, which is a political platform, and when you're making a case in court, there can be different words used and different in it. But this is a public political resolution, and what it says is it's directed to the Jubilee World Romani Congress. It's from the Roma Working Group on Kosovo, and it's resolution number 1 because it is the first resolution accepted for debate, discussion, and vote by this Congress. It says that the Roma Working Group for Kosovo, having adopted resolution number 1, submits the following for discussion approval by the World Romani Congress. The 13th of June, 1999 was a massive and at the same time coordinated beginning of the planned expulsion of Roma from Kosovo. This action, which we characterize as a large-scale pogrom, was carried out by numerous and well-organized Albanian paramilitaries, including members of the Uchuka, formations in Pristina and other towns and cities. In this operation, hundreds of innocent Roma civilians were brutally killed or disappeared between June the 13th and August the 31st, 1999. Thousands of homes were deliberately set on fire, forcing the owners to flee for their lives. We therefore resolve and request that this tragedy be forever remembered for what it was, the complete ethnic cleansing of Roma from the territory of Kosovo, in effect a pogrom against the entire Roma people. Resolution number 1, 2021, calls upon participants of this Congress and the Romani communities throughout our global diaspora to join with Kosovo Roma and exiles from Kosovo in marking this year, 13th of June, and ever future June the 13th, as a day of solemn remembrance. So I hope those who are joining us in this program will think about this, and if they will, they can mark their approval by comment or likes on Facebook, and we'll be glad to see what public reaction is to our first disclosure of this resolution. Okay, Rafati.
Ахмет, манге пана тева кере нешто, пана иситу пана 5 минутија. Ахмет, права.
Dobro, ovako je žao gratom, skoro kako gratom, ovako je žao skoro...
Манге сарсине ситуација котарики фамилија,
Ето, ја нашти скала ко слике керески, ке аменде, например, Хамза, ме јум ко трек пурани приштинаки фамилија, Романи фамилија, ме предкија тришол беш, можда и више, живинџе, ани Приштина. А иначе Алјандар и Бурса андро Коранива. Модатке жаботи овине саветнико ко градоначелник општине, вине за начелника на финансиска полиција. Ја мене јама увек некако посебно образовано, посебно аџаекото Рома. Мода завршинџе и школа 1954 године, 54 улиловани бутијани општине. Ако шете предпоставине, ја мен ке жама два кер, ке жам дуј керахи на мене ни Приштина. Меđutim, одолахине перде кера, кото чисто природно материјали, и намен фирма, и няма доста сартепенатке статично аџаре, нормално живото живинџам. Меđutim, канале очивале, он сали лјамендар, ништа нам уклете лако трокер, сасухине, а од техине процена, ано, сар проценинџао судо, ту Хамза, процена и сима котро судо, милиони хемефташол хиляде марке оштетинџе о кер хемошејан, о кер о акала, о чивале, о чеку, о криминалци. Јек милиони тефташол хиляде ту Хамза. Мандар тева керала ке Харица, ме студиринџум ани Приштина хемија, хем историја, дуј факултети андре пути. Си немам и фирма, уклучимо и има бизнис, лично бизнис, али уедно студиринџум историја, увек интересинџум пе романе историјако, долеске да уписинџум историја, писинџум, почминџум у то време, још 80-ти година, 90-ти година, книга кота Рома, кота историја Роменѓа ни Приштина. Рома увек нема ги некако сар главно приоритети у животу. Посем палоратиште, гелюма ни Москва, студиринџум филмска режија ни Москва, завршинџум од те мајстер студии, академски студии праве, филмски режија, игране филмски режија, на документарне. Сар прво романо свето не има продолабуќа, ту Хамза. Посем сар тева кераптике живинџум е квактјани Србија, сар избеглица, пала од ова алюма ката ани Немачка и ани Немачка кана живина. Кана соло е роменцар, кала Хамза ма бистар. Кана ухулиле од Шибале, 1000 вардешунјато бешке аменде, ани мала, он марџе ромен. Од ола Ромака е хале марибе котро Шибале, пало е тикно време. Он муле, са од ола Рома. Мажкало дола Рома, например, Мидајда, од Шибале улиле ке аменда рокер зорија, марџе медија хе медаде. Медија кувџела незгодно, пало е шоевта масек ми дај мули. На мули кот танд, него пало е шоевта масек. Аџари се амен скоро са е роменцо му дарже, романе жртве, пеака ја методологија му дарженен Хамза, тева крелаке. Маржерен, кото ромари бе, он пало е шоевта масек беш дуј муле. Акава и се амен е ковате. Со иси проблеми панда е ромен, Хамза.
Ајде преводи навакава со вакерџан.
Ајде па ти не време кава керап, те на ништо.
Ајде иситу па на 5 минути туте.
Ајде преведим.
Ahmed was talking about that he was coming from Pristina, Kosovo. He was born there. His family roots are from Turkey, more than 300, 400 years lived in Kosovo. His father was amongst the first educated Roma in the municipality. He got his first job in the municipality of Pristina. And they also, the children of his father were all educated. Ahmed finished 2 studies, one as the chemical engineer, and the second one was the historian. And also, in the meantime, they opened also the small business, his father. And also, his father accumulated the wealth of 2 houses. So they had 2 houses, and they did some calculation of how much was worth it. And it's pretty significant. That is like, you build your entire life, career to build a home for your children and so on. And I think another part that he was trying to says when he went to military, then he studied the film making, to be a filmmaker. And that's where he learned to become a filmmaker. And also afterwards, he continued the studies of filmmaker. And there was, during the 98, 99, especially aftermath of the bombing, posle bombardovanja, tačno, ali od Šibanete Marinkadea.
Da, ano,
After the aftermath of the 78 days of bombing, the KLA, UCK, came into the home of Ahmed's parents, and both parents were beaten to really very badly, where Ahmed's mother died after 7 months from that beating. Tena biste gjum nešto, Ahmed?
Shajte do da i ne, me dija margje me da de.
No, dovava ke gjum.
Me da dester pagre 2 kokje i od tada gjia dive obđudo panda. Popela uštilo panda.
One of the beating was so severe. After 7 months, he lost his mother, and his father's both hips were broken. And he's still alive, but he could not walk since 1999.
Ja, ovsa stošani. Šajte nastavinav, Hamza? Somangavteva kera pandajek problemi su si romeno andari diaspora. Injavardeš posto romandaro Kosovo, onaš leandaro Kosovo, mukleo Kosovo, ona lazinempe avrijali, on kereni Romani diaspora. Otprilike, od ja brojka negdje oko 100-120 šolubiškilade Roma. Ali su si bitno od ole Romenge. Od ola Roma na reintegrisime nisar ano Kosovaku sistemi. On naš ti glasinen, na nelen pravo ti kljuvente glasinen. Len frdinđalen o Kosovo sar kaj navaljaolingi, i države Kosovaki frdinđalen sar manuša kaj navaljaolingi. Ona štiti kljuvente glasinen, tavo ano aluipa. Ona štiri nempeke pekera, lingi kera astar de ili bikinde ili peravde. Lingi situacija je romengi situacija ni diaspora but džungale, but lošno. I nekako akaja rezolucija kod progon, ojteri samo je prvo hapo, je prvi korak Hamza, šani, te akava problemi romengo te instrumentalizinope. Ako MT kreompe institucije, ne samo instrumentalizacija, nego institucije Romane. A mene andari diaspora u Romasu ima. Da nema nijek institucija, nijek instrumentalizacije. A meni jam totalno mauša bez ikakvog prava na Kosovo. Samo safiri, sa turisti, džao, dori, ništa više.
Ok, šajte prevednava kava?
Ja.
what is Ahmed emphasizing here on this resolution, there are in a diaspora at least 120,000. And I would add myself, I think even up to 150,000, because we did a book about ethnic cleansing. And through our book and finding and analysis, at least 130,000. And that is very conservative estimate. And what Ahmed wants to emphasize in this resolution, that these Roma that are in diaspora, we have a right to vote in Kosovo parliamentary election. And none of that is completely unexisting. And what he wants is to make sure that these Roma that are in diaspora can make some change. And all these Roma that are in diaspora are really in a very difficult situation, because still, you know, for example, in Germany and all the NATO countries that bomb Kosovo, the very same people that they escaped to their countries, they deporting them back. And so now we have to figure out one of the system how Roma outside of Kosovo can vote in the parliamentary and local elections, because that is one of the really key issues here that we have with Roma, because it's unexisting. Te biste rëgjum nešto, Ahmet?
Na Bisterjan. Shajte predružina.
Ajde, može, pa na 2 minuta.
Problemi je Romengo, uopšte problemi je Romengo. Na samo Maro, nego je Romengo kada će gledano Kosovo. Na mena nemen garancija za naša prava. Nikoga ne garanti no. I država Kosovo čivare penen, a meno Kosovo imam garancija. Ali od ja nevaljano garancija, nevažića garancija, šani. Znaš ti, na nesigurno država ojte garantino ništa. A meno Roma, od Oleske sakava kera, da roda garanti koga vola mi ga na svetu. Da li Ujedinjene nacije, da li Evropska komisija, da li i bivša Jugoslavija, neko morate ola mi ga garanti. A meni jam na ne jam garantirimo narodo, ano Kosovo. Toske amaro pravo Urušinope, diskriminisano sijem, okera mare dile ne rinđelen do današnjeg dana. Kada džatani institucije ti rineto ker, što ti rineto brevi kineto ki miliciano sudo.
Аз ще преведна кала.
Ajde.
So what Ahmed wants to do is to organize this, and there is no guarantee for the Roma. The Kosovo state is independent now. It's a function on its own, but we don't have any guarantee from the Kosovo government, and also we don't have any guarantee from the internationals. And for example, many Roma cannot claim their properties till today's day, and that is a big travesty, and it's a big discrimination towards Roma population. And again, I have to emphasize, this is me talking, I think I translated everything from Ahmed, but what I see right now in Kosovo, I am momentarily in Kosovo, there is no institutions. Literally, they pick up these Roma candidates that are puppets of the Kosovo government. Just one local Roma from Gračanica went to greet Ramush Hayradinaj, who is a war criminal, with both hands in order just to get a position in a Kosovo parliament. And this is not, we cannot function as a Roma in diaspora that way with corrupted politicians.
Maybe I just come in this small moment before we finished, because that was Shani's private comment to this, but it's also in a way important to explain that the people from the diaspora are facing what our local candidates, or whatever how we want to call them, I would say they are also in a very difficult position, that we have to know that We say in German, there is a speech that you say, the hand that you feed, you wouldn't beat. So you wouldn't bite it. So in this way, we know they are in a very delicate situation, but on the other side, they got a mandate. They got a mandate to do their job. And if they don't do it, we are the witnesses who watch them and who also want to emphasize them in some ways, because this what happened with Kosovo. And this is also, again, a direct question to Mrs. Post. This is a pogrom, and I want to have it from the right of the law. Is it this or not? And our first part that we want to do, this kind of resolution that we also want to emphasize with a lot of other people, and that way we do also as the Jubilee group. It's so important that we recognize that things have to be done by the minority themselves, either they will not happen. And for this, I would also like to think about, not to mention people who are in some position, I don't care about them. I would also like to have them with us, but I know they are in a difficult position and they are living in these countries. But on the other side, what can we do? As all the viewers also are invited to think with us, it's not only about the Kosovo, it's also it's a general problem. If it becomes to votes, that the people are coming to the suburbs or to the village with some oil or some sugar, and the guys make the vote sign to something, but they don't know, they have not a clue what happened. So this is, but also a part of the system in general, and also the European government is playing their own game with them. So from the beginning, there was a clue, there was an idea, and there was also a purpose why Kosovo have to be independent. And this is also something that we would like to know from the law perspective. What for guarantee, or what for things we have. So I would cut it now. I didn't want to start with my own personal view because I was very young. If my parents came to Kosovo, but I know that their house, what they built, was also exactly the same how our brother Ricardo and our brother Ahmed said. The people got in, and it was not some strangers, it was the neighbors who steal everything, who burned the house, who destroyed it, and they built a new property on our place. And I mean, we are in a privileged situation because my parents have the legal papers, but it doesn't mean nothing. So what also Shani mentioned with, we can go to the court, but we can be beaten, or we can pay so many, because my father, for example, he is paying so much money, but also so much lifetime, and he don't get a result. Even if there are lawyers who got now candidates, they say, yeah, there are some rights, but in a way, it will be tricky. So what is it? Is there kind of law for us as minority or not? Thank you.
Hamza, I can answer one thing, given that I lived in America and I know why they are bombing left and right. Because America and the European Union, they love the capitalism on steroids. Roma are not the people who America or European Union can invest. We don't run the economy. What we can run as Roma in diaspora, to have our lobbyists, to have the politicians to kind of harass, no bother, but harass the politicians such as Romeo France and whoever is European Parliament. We have to harass them, not ask them or beg them. We need to harass them to represent the Roma diaspora. And I don't know, we might have some more questions, or I don't know. It's a very...
Maybe Mrs. Post can answer of my question, please.
Well, the legal issue is, of course, huge. There are many things, but first, back on your question about language, we did discuss the use of genocide versus ethnic cleansing. There was a long discussion, and we ended up saying we cannot use genocide. There are legal definitions of genocide. There are also legal ramifications for genocide. We decided we could not use that. We had to go with ethnic cleansing. There is no legal definition and ramifications for the word pogrom. So you need to definitely use ethnic cleansing in your document, because that has legal definitions, history, ramifications, etc. As to whether anybody has rights, I've worked with the African Americans in the United States since I was 16 years old. And the answer is, it's there on paper. Try to get it in your life.
Diana, when we published the book, we had a really long list of professors on the different sides, left and right, and including the lawyers. We could not call it also genocide, but I came with a definition of ethnocide, which means targeting someone on the ethnic basis.
Well, that's good, but that does not a legal definition that is going to assist you when you get into court and into international organizations that will be relying on prior legal precedent.
I see. Thank you.
Can we?
Any other question, Gratan, Prala?
My question is, I think that we do need to wind up, if I may say so, because there's a very long listen for those people who have been with us through these discussions. And we will be having future meetings with the lawyers. And of course, the working group will meet and the Congress will have further jobs to do on this issue. So I would like, if I may ask the organizers to bring us to a halt here.
Sorry, was it? Yeah. So it's not really my task to end this meeting unless of technically clicking or on end the Zoom. But I just want to make sure that everyone knows that it's possible to register for the Jubilee Congress. So you can join directly via Zoom as a participant. On Facebook, I post the link for the registration procedure, and you can also find it on the website romanistan.com. So please go there, and we update the information every day. You will find also the YouTube links there, but also the Zoom link where you can register for the session. So spread the word. And also, I just want to make sure you know that we can also publish the resolution on the website romanistan.com. So everyone can find it there and read it. And yeah, as this Congress is supposed to grow, we, by the time, will make some votings on this resolution. So if you want to be updated, please also put your email to the newsletter, which you can also find on the website. And yeah, this is it, I guess.
I really want to wrap it up also, Veronica and Hamze and Paula Gratan. I really want to thank you all three for a really hard work and administrating this, and really, this is kind of really giving me hope for our diaspora, for our Roma identity. And I want to thank to Ahmed, my brother from Pristina. I want to thank to our sister Nizacete Pistimi. Thank you so much, sister. Ricardo Prala, Tovemange Sastotai Baktalo, and Diana, thank you for being with us with Underdog.
Before we get the last words to Kako Gratan, I also just want to say thank you. And this is just the beginning. We just want to follow the work what Kako Gratan started before 50 years. And there is just the beginning. And we will try with the alliance of our people that we have. And we are also very glad to have very professional people with us. And this is not only Mrs. Diana Post, this is also our sister Nizacete Beslimi. She is also a lawyer and also the chairwoman of the Bundes Roma Verband, what is our diaspora German Roma institution. And we are at the beginning, and that means also that we all who are here and who are listening, We need more support from our sisters and brothers. Please share it. Please be part of it. And please start to discuss with us, because just is the first beginning of also have a kind of trust, because now we have to use also the technique and this internet for our purpose. Thank you for being with us. Kako Graton, the last words are yours.
My last few words, just to thank everybody. It's going to be, it's a long road to break that barrier that we faced. 20 years ago, so much was and so little achieved, unfortunately. So we are taking that torch forward, but we need a lot of help. We need a lot of patience. We need a lot of determination. And we hope more of us through the Congress will join in this campaign, and that we may reach some successful result along the way.
Thank you. Thank you a lot. Tomorrow at 5 o'clock, we have the next meeting. There is about the memorial, who also is in discussion because they want to destroy it. Tomorrow at 5 o'clock is the next panel about our memorial. Thank you a lot. Ačiū and Dei blessing. Thank you, Shani.
Thank you all.